Hello my dear students in 7th grade from أطفال الرمز النموذجية Academy. How are you? Hope you all are fine. Today inshallah we will practice the present simple tense with adverbs of frequency and ask questions using how often. Are you ready? Let's start. What do we mean by adverbs of frequency? Adverbs of frequency means ظروف التكرار. Adverbs of frequency means ظروف التكرار. Why do we use adverbs of frequency? We use adverbs of frequency to say how often something happens. We use adverbs of frequency to say how often كم مرة something happens. حدث الشيء. What are the adverbs of frequency? They are always, usually, often, sometimes, and never. These are adverbs of frequency. Let's see the place of adverbs of frequency. Where is the place of adverb of frequency in a sentence? At the beginning or in the middle or at the end of the sentence? Let's start. The first position, if a sentence contains a main verb, just one verb, the adverb is placed after the subject. We have here the form, subject, adverb, main verb plus complement. Look at this example. He usually gets good marks in exams. We have here the adverb is usually. Usually comes after the subject. We have here one main verb, and we call it main verb. Usually comes between the subject and the main verb. If a sentence contains verb to be, what are verbs to be? They are, is, are, am, was, were. Okay, the adverb is placed after verb to be. Subject, verb to be, adverb plus complement. Look at this example. Sarah is always happy. Here, adverb always comes after the verb to be is. We cannot say Sarah always is happy. It's wrong. You have to use always after the verb to be. Sarah is always happy. The third position, if a sentence contains auxiliary verb and main verb. Here, if the sentence has two verbs, the first one is auxiliary and the second is main verb, adverb is placed between them, between auxiliary and main verb. Let's see the form. Subject, auxiliary, plus adverb, plus main verb, plus complement. Sammy doesn't always take a bus to school. We have here two verbs. The first one is doesn't and is auxiliary verb, and the second is take and it's main verb. Always comes between the auxiliary verb and the main verb. Okay, if a sentence has two verbs, the adverb it comes between these verbs, between the auxiliary and the main verb. The last position, when using adverb in the question, it's placed before the main verb. Let's see. Auxiliary, we have here, we start the question by using do or does, depend on the subject. If the subject is singular, we use does. If the subject is plural, we use do. Subject, adverb, plus main verb, plus complement. Here, we have example, does she usually get up so late? Where is the main verb here? Yes, the main verb here is get up, and usually comes before the main verb. In a question, the adverb is placed before. Let's move to how often. How often? كم مرة. Why do we use how often? We use how often to ask a question about the number of times an action happens. Again, we use how often to ask a question حتى نسأل سؤال about the number of times عن عدد مرات an action happens حدوث الشيء. We use the adverbs of frequency to answer the question which starts with how often. You have to know if asked question that starts with how often فthe answer should have one of adverbs of frequency. We have here the form. We start with the question with how often plus do or does, depend on the subject. If the subject is plural, we use do. If the subject is singular, we use does. Subject, verb 1, but the verb here should be in the past form after the verb do, plus complement. We have here the example. How often does your sister reuse plastic bags? We use here does because the subject, your sister, is singular. Reuse, the main verb in the past form, we don't add anything. Okay, after the verb does, plastic bags, the answer, my sister sometimes. Pay attention here. The answer has one of the adverbs of frequency, sometimes. Sometimes comes after the subject. Reuses, we add s to the verb. Why? Because the subject is singular. Reuses plastic bags.